Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Nibblink. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy, and in this podcast, I'm going to go over the most puzzling players league-wide as submitted by the Apples and Genos Discord server. Let's get Welcome on in, everyone, to another wonderful Monday evening. Hopefully, we can get you through your Monday and make it a little bit better. If you got a case of the Mondays, maybe Jason Zucker, 1 goal, 1 assist so far, and we're not even barely started the second period here. What do we got in this Montreal Anaheim game? I've been furiously typing. I've not been checking up on what's been going on. We got a Troy Terry goal. That's good for me against Blake. We like to see that. Laine staying hot on the power play. Good stuff there. Good games all around in the early going. Hopefully you're getting what you need in the early going here. We got lots of people in the comments already. Love to see it. Let's get into it. Frank, who should I drop to get Ross Colton back in my lineup? Holloway, Zetterlund, Rust, Moore, or Buchnevich? Ross Colton is definitely higher than a couple of those guys for me. I would keep Rust over Ross Colton. I'd keep Buchnevich over Ross Colton. I want to see what happens with Holloway because I think there's potentially something there. Not convinced, but definitely not unconvinced. Zetterlund and Moore are the most interesting as potential drops. I guess the least interesting would be a better way to phrase that. Let's see what we've got with San Jose. Zetterlund is still on that Celebrini line, which is obviously a good spot to be. That part does make him hard to move off of. But yeah, not on that top power play unit that they ended up using as much. So that part is a little bit less interesting for Zetterlund. Trevor Moore, we kind of know his deal. He's in that top 9. It was nice that he was playing with Kempe and Kopitar. I didn't see anything today to see if they changed that up in practice. I guess I can double check that too. While we're here, we may as well check on the LA Kings. Do we have any new lines as of today? No, we do not. So yeah, it's between Moore and Zetterlund for me. I think I would drop Moore. I think it would be Moore for me. I think Colton fulfills a similar kind of role probably in your lineup, but it's between Moore and Zetterlund for me. That was a long start on the first question. Hopefully I can get quicker at this. Steve Balin. Oh, this is the correct version. Good evening, Nate. Good evening to you, sir. Which goalie holds more value rest of season, Riddick or Merzlikins? Already hold Kemper on my IR. Am hesitant to drop Riddick too quickly. Hashtag 0G. I think probably Merzlikins. It does seem like they view him as the volume goalie there, at least at the moment. Yeah, I don't think you can say the same for Riddick. I think it's possible that Riddick gets volume rest of season, but the fact that you're already holding Kemper means to me that I don't want to be holding both goalies, so I drop Riddick. I would play Kemper. Perhaps that's the wrong decision, but based on what information we know, I think it is the correct decision as of today. And then I would keep going with Merzlikins. Carter also thought Trevor Moore, so there's 2 for Trevor Moore. Danny Miller, what do we think about DeBrusk's deployment when Miller returns? Does he stick on power play 1, still skate with EP40, or is he a major sell high? I think there's a good chance that he sticks in both spots. We talked about Jake DeBrusk on the flagship show, so if you haven't gone back to check that one out, the one Blake and I just did came out today here on Monday, then you should definitely go back and check that out. But yeah, I think it's more likely than not. I mean, throughout the course of the season, I would say he's definitely going to come off power play 1 and the EP40 line at some point throughout the season for sure. Like nearly guaranteed, he's not going to be there the entire time. But that doesn't mean that it's not the most common thing, and that also doesn't mean that he might not be worth holding on to for the entire rest of the season at this point. Party at the Moon Tower's in here. Let's get to biz. Yes, sir. Hidden in Plain Sight says, "You the best in the biz." Party in Moon Tower says, "Troy Terry has scored. It's a miracle." He knew I needed him this week for the head-to-head streamer deathmatch. That's what we're going with. I Dangle Plugs says, "Trade targets for John Carlson." That's an interesting case. We could take a quick gander at what Carlson's been doing as of late and see if we can come up with something. I'm gonna assume you're trying to find something equivalent on defense side here. Let's see what Carlson's been up to first in the last few games here. Oh yeah, he had that 3 assist game. He's still been shooting a lot and blocking. I guess it depends on what your league is doing. But yeah, I'm not super interested in moving off of Carlson for anything less than a pretty good return right now. I can try to figure out who I would be willing to move off of him for, but I kind of feel like I'm not going to come up with a long list. Yeah, if you look like in Caufield scoring, John Carlson is like around 10th or 12th in defenseman in total points scored on the season. I don't know. Maybe you could get a Rasmus Dahlin owner who's worried about the back stuff that he's going through. Maybe you could get a Dahlin owner to bite on that. That'd be swinging pretty high. I don't know if you can do that. Maybe you could add something to get up to an Evan Bouchard. That's probably what I'd be trying to do, is trying to add someone and get up to a Bouchard, get up to a Dougie Hamilton, get up to a Roman Josi, a Zach Werenski, something like that. If you're going to move off of Carlson, I don't think you have to, personally, but yeah. Ian, let us all rejoice on this wondrous day in the glory of our new Zero-G hero, Mackenzie Blackwood. May he save all of our seasons. Intro Dave in here, as usual, with the hashtag Zero-G. Yes, let's do the, what do we need to do? The prayer circle, the candle circle, whatever we need to do. Let's get that in there. Let's get Mackenzie Blackwood to save us all. I actually picked up Mackenzie Blackwood in Caufield, in Tier 1 Caufield, just because looking at this week, it's a busy week, and I only had Decord on my roster, and I wanted to have 2 goalies for this week in particular, and Blackwood was basically the only guy who I felt pretty confident in getting 2 starts. I don't know now if he's going to get 2 starts, but obviously I feel okay about the pickup now. Yeah, just my insider knowledge coming through for me there for sure. Chichi Mini, what do you think I can get for Strome and Velarde? Maybe Keller? I think you can probably aim higher than that, to be honest. Strome's had a terrific season so far. I'm trying to think how high you could possibly aim, though, with Strome and Velarde. I do think there'll be some people who don't truly believe what's going on. Maybe like a Heischer. Maybe you could get up to that point. Boldy's probably swinging a bit too high. Who else could we get that might be in this range? Maybe you could get up to an Alex Tuck. I'd be okay with that. Maybe some others wouldn't. Svechnikov, that boat is probably passed with his recent hot streak. Jake Gensel, maybe you could get up to. I could see that one coming. Maybe a Barkov. That's probably a bit too high. For Hagee, you can probably get to, and I'd be okay with that. There's a few options for sure. Jordan, hey Nate, could you look at Barkov and Jack Hughes metrics, thoughts on their recent performance compared to your projections? Sure, let's do that for a quick second here. Jack Hughes, Alexander Barkov. We've got Jack Hughes, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points in his last 5. And Barkov, 3 goals, 7 points in his last 5. Both of them skating over 20 minutes. Hughes has terrific metrics. Barkov doesn't have great individual metrics, but terrific on-ice metrics, which is a little bit Barkov's deal. Definitely, we like what we're seeing there. Barkov is on pace for 33 goals and 115 points. Pretty terrific from him. Hughes now on pace for 30 goals and 96 points on the season. I still think there's headroom for Hughes. I think he can go higher on the IPP. I think he can shoot for a higher percentage. I think he can go higher on the on-ice shooting percentage. Barkov is redlining for sure, 17% shooting percentage, 14.8% on-ice shooting percentage, but it wouldn't be totally shocking for him to maintain something close to this. The on-ice numbers are that good. So both of these guys, absolute studs. I do have Hughes higher rest of season. I can go back to my projections briefly and try to figure out what I had. So I had Hughes for 47 goals and 108 points. I don't really have a good reason to move off that currently. Obviously, he's hot lately. Maybe he scores a few less goals with the way he's been trending this year. A few less goals, a few more assists maybe, but overall, I think that's fine. And then Barkov, I had for 33 goals, 89 points. It's just more assists that have been coming through for Barkov so far. And yeah, I mean, it depends, right? It depends if you're primarily an assist guy. It really depends on the conversion of the players around him. And I definitely baked in some regression for guys like Sam Reinhart. And so far, it seems like it's been business as usual. And that's led to a high on ice shooting percentage. If that sustains at this really high level, then Barkov can be something of like he can push 100 points, and that wouldn't shock me in the slightest. But it's not what I would project necessarily. I think he's probably in a range now where I'd expect him to be in the 90 plus scenario instead of like the 85 to 90 range that I am originally projected for. So maybe a slight adjustment there. Whereas Jack Hughes, I kind of feel like more or less where I had him projected, at least in terms of the point pace. WMW Animations drop Peterka for Colton. Not this week, not with this schedule. I wouldn't do it. But overall, yeah, it's still tough. Taylor Hall scored a goal. I streamed Taylor Hall in today in Caufield. Great day to be Nate, I guess. Everything's coming up Nate on this one. Blake will be so angry, but we like to see that sometimes. All right, we're getting lots of points going on here in this Red Wings Sabres game. My goodness, goalies can't save anything. Casa's in the game and has given up a goal. Wow, great stuff there. Great podcasting too. Carter, what should I look for to do with a goalie roster of Saros, Leafs tandem, and Blackwood? Thinking to try and trade a Leaf, but Preds are looking more bleak by the week. Yeah, I don't like tandems. I don't like rostering tandems. I've said it a lot of times on the podcast, but basically your best case scenario is that one of them is way better than the other. And if that comes true, then the one that is not as good is a waste of roster space for that whole time that you've been rostering them. Yeah, I just don't like that eventuality. I want to take more shots at getting potentially good outcomes from all my roster spots, not just mediocre at worst and good from one and bad from another at best. So, yeah, I would try to move off of one of the Leafs tandem. I'm not like that concerned about Saros. Yes, I am concerned about Nashville and why they can't do anything all of a sudden. It's very bizarre to me. I don't understand it. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, Blake and I talked about it again when we were talking about Filip Forsberg, who will come up in this pod here. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, to be quite honest with you. What is going on there? They were so good before. That being said, like their Corsi 4 percentage at 585 in the last couple of weeks here, 7 games played, it's at 53%. That's a good number. The scoring chance 4 percentage, where's that at here? It's a little bit more middling, but definitely not as bad as they have been. So I do think there's a bounce back coming for Saros. I would not try to trade him low, I guess, is what I would say. Matt, howdy Nate, would you trade Svech for Forsberg? That's a tough question, but I think yes, I would. Yeah, the metrics are still so good for Forsberg right now. We'll get to it, but I think I would move off Svechnikov for Forsberg. I think that's probably a pretty spicy take given how Svechnikov has been performing in the last little bit here. But yeah, if you've followed Apples and Genos for any time, you know I'm not really concerned about the actual goals and assists going in. I'm much more looking at the underlying numbers. Another Forsberg question: would you trade Zach Werenski for Forsberg? Depends. That's much more dependent on what you got on defense behind Werenski. In general, do I think Forsberg is more valuable to a roster than Zach Werenski? Probably rest of season. But it's close enough that it would matter to me if you've got defense behind Werenski that you can work with. Last ones. Can't wait for this Ross Colton breakdown. What's up, Nate? Yeah, let's get into it. Nice wrench. All right. Thanks, Nate. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Steve. Michael asks, should I drop Talbot and Mrazek for the Colorado tandem? Points league settings are wins 3, goals against minus 2.2, saves 4.5. Okay. And shutouts are 3. I wouldn't drop them for the tandem, no. I would drop one of them specifically for Blackwood. I don't think Wedgwood is more than a backup. Yeah, you don't go out and spend a second round pick on Mackenzie Blackwood for him to be a backup, in my opinion. So, or even a member of a tandem. Toronto Dave's in here with some prayer candles. Let's go. Love some ANGPP. That's what we're doing here, I guess. How's Nichushkin looking versus his projections? Sell high or hold? He is the number one player requested by the Apples and Genos Discord server, so we're getting there. Your legend, Nate. Thanks for the great pods. Thank you for showing up here. Drop Cousins or Zucker for Trocheck. In general, yes. Yeah, I think you do that this week. They both have I think it is the exact identical schedule, right? Yeah, identical schedule this week for the Rangers and the Buffalo Sabres. And so, yeah, definitely I would drop either of those. I would start with Zucker, though. Jumping on late, buying the Shane Wright heater despite lower time on ice. Let's throw Shane Wright in here, shall we? I like Shane Wright as a player, but it does really seem like he hasn't been given a lot of an opportunity. Underlying metrics are okay. 196 shots per 60, 117th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. On ice numbers are not that good. Definitely the best little stretch of his season so far. It's going to take a little bit more ice time for me to get into Shane Wright. Let me check out the game log here and try to figure out if this is trending in a good direction. Yeah, even the last game, he only got 12-27. I'm going to have to see a little bit more sustained stuff in at least the 15-plus minute range. He only had 2 straight games at 15-plus minutes, and then it went back down again, even with this hot streak. So I like Shane Wright. I'm open to Shane Wright being a guy that I roster, but I'm not doing it currently. All right, we got to the end of the comments for the time being, but keep them coming. We will get back in there. I'm going to start on 3 particular Colorado Avalanche players. Val Nichushkin, number 1 here, 3 goals for 4 points, rather, in his last 5 games here, 19.5 minutes average time on ice. We'd love to see that for Nichushkin, coming right back into the lineup and skating big minutes right away and proving himself capable. 192nd in shots per 60, but 46 in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. That's a good look right there for sure. 156, Corsi 4 per 60, 109 scoring chances, 4 per 60. And crucially, Big Val has been getting himself onto that top power play. Last power play was Nichushkin, McKinnon, Rantanen, and Lehkonen. And so, and then I'd even strength to this Nichushkin, Middlestat, and Colton in the last game here. So, yeah, good spot for Nichushkin. Obviously, the best spot is to be at even strength with McKinnon and Rantanen, and then on the top power play with them as well. That's where you'd ideally like to be, but it's definitely a spot where Nichushkin can apply his craft really, really well. And the underlying numbers are great to start. We saw a 25% shooting percentage bender to open things up here. That's going to fall off, but the 68-point pace, I think, is probably pretty reasonable, to be honest with you. With top power play, second line deployment, I think 68-point Nichushkin is well within the wheelhouse. 19.5 minutes, yeah, that'll get it done. Ross Colton, it's good to see him come out with the 2 games and be on the second line right away. That's a good sign for sure. But obviously the time on ice is of concern. 13-16 in the first game, 14-40 in the second game. That being said, he came out of the gate with 3 shots, 3 hits, 2 blocks. The next game scores the goal, 2 shots, 2 hits, 2 blocks, doing all the things that we love Ross Colton for. I don't know what we can reasonably expect from him if he's going to get this low of minutes. That's the biggest thing, right? If he gets on top power play again, if he's starting to get that kind of Nichushkin-esque treatment where he gets on top power play over Lehkonen, I don't know how likely that is, but if he gets it, then I'm going to be really excited once again about Colton. But that's what it's going to take for him to be much more than a streamer with this level of deployment at the moment. And then Mackenzie Blackwood. So obviously, if you haven't heard, big news in the NHL is there's a big trade. The Colorado Avalanche acquiring Mackenzie Blackwood. I'm trying to find the exact terms of the trade here. Here we go. So they acquire Mackenzie Blackwood and Giovanni Smith and a 2027 fifth rounder for Georgiev, Kovalenko, a 2026 second rounder, and a 2025 fifth rounder. So definitely, like I said, you're spending a second round pick on a guy. You expect this to be your goalie. They expect Mackenzie Blackwood to come in there and be at least the 1A like 55 to 60%, potentially more than that. Bednar has really stuck with a number one goalie pretty much exclusively. Even when Georgiev was not playing well at times, he was given a lot, and I do mean a lot, of consecutive starts. Even when there were other options that other people were begging for him to try, he did really seem to stick to a number one net minder. And so that's obviously the bull case for Mackenzie Blackwood. Maybe they don't, just go all out and hand him the entire reins to the entire net at this point. Still figuring out what they have in Scott Wedgwood, but obviously had himself a nice game there Sunday. So it feels like they should be a little bit confident in that they have at least a capable backup, maybe a capable 1B, or at least a lower portion of a tandem there. But I think baseline expectation for me right now is that Blackwood is going to get 2 of every 3 starts, and that's going to be really useful for fantasy. He has such a low bar to clear. Like, it's hard to it's hard to really articulate how low a bar it is to clear that Georgiev and Annunen were not able to clear this year playing for Colorado. Like, this should be a really good spot for any goaltender to apply their craft. Even over the last couple of weeks here, the Avalanche are 8th in Corsi for percentage, or scoring chance for percentage. It should be, by all counts, a really good place for a goalie to get wins, a goalie to, see a decent amount of rubber, but not so much that you're like, all it takes is a few bad bounces for him to really get hung out to dry. It really shouldn't be that bad for Mackenzie Blackwood. This is a great place for a goalie to be, in my opinion, for fantasy especially. And so I am pretty excited about Mackenzie Blackwood. If you're redrafting goalies right now, I have to think Mackenzie Blackwood would be in conversation after like the top 7 or 8 goaltenders. So, I don't know if that's how it's going to play out. Obviously, he could play terribly. He could go in there and things just don't work. New goalie coach and everything goes terribly, goes sideways. That's definitely a possibility with any goalie going to a new situation. But I think you have to be really excited about the upside, and upside is really what we're chasing here with all these 0G candidates. And so, Mackenzie Blackwood, like I mentioned, I picked him up in Caufield. In my other 3 leagues, he was unrostered when the news hit, and he was rostered within 2 hours at the most of the news dropping. So it was definitely a rush to the wire to get Blackwood, and with very good reason, in my opinion. All right, I'm going to keep moving on for a minute here. I'm going to try to knock off a few before we get back into the comments, but I am coming back there. Don't you worry. Jared McCann, this is a player that Blake and I talked about in the flagship show, so go back and check that out. The Coles notes here is that Jared McCann is getting more ice time than he ever has. The underlying metrics on an individual basis look terrific. It's just that he kind of used up all his luck earlier in the season, it kind of feels like, and now he's kind of just regressing to the mean, even though he's playing very well himself individually. On pace for 28 goals, 65 points with under 18 minutes average time on ice, but as I mentioned, over 18 and a half minutes in the last 5 games here, trending up in that category there. And honestly, I have no reason to believe that he can't do even more than this. I think he can eclipse 70 points this season. I don't think that's too crazy to say. 70, 75 point Jared McCann rest of season, if he holds this 18 and a half minutes time on ice, I think that's in the wheelhouse. Jason Robertson here, up to 4 points in his last 5 games, 18 minutes, average time on ice, starting to see some okay numbers under the hood, 98th in shots per 60, 118th individual scoring chances for per 60, 30th in Corsi for per 60, 33rd in scoring chances for per 60. Looking okay there, still just an 18-goal, 52-point pace for Robertson. Definitely, he's going to see some positive regression. 8.7% on-ice shooting percentage. That's going to come way up for sure. His individual shooting percentage at 9.4%, definitely going to come way up, so don't worry about that. The question is, can we really expect a big-time bounce back? This is a guy you're probably taking around the 2-3 turn in a lot of leagues, and I don't know that he's going to be able to return that value for you. I don't think you're getting that value for him if you're trying to trade him away now, so you're kind of just left hoping he gets on a big hot streak, and then we can see if there's a chance to move off him at that point, or if things have changed so much that we think that now he's going to get 19 plus minutes, and the calculus really has changed at that point. I think that Jason Robertson is going to do better than he has so far, but do better to the tune of like 70 to 75 points. Like, yeah, Jared McCann versus Jason Robertson is real conversation for me at this point. Rest of season, I did not think that was going to be a place that we would be in come this point in the season. Last one here before I get back to the comments. Aaron Ekblad, 1 goal, 4 points in his last 25 minutes a night. 11th in shots per 60 amongst all defensemen in that span. 107th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. 7th in Corsi, 4 per 60. And 9th in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Really good stuff there. He did get back on the top power play unit in the last game, so that's obviously helping him out with a lot of those metrics. I do think that Ekblad is pretty valuable as long as he's on that top power play. We know how good that top power play is for Florida, and so anybody on there from a defensive standpoint is somebody that we should have some interest in. Whether or not he hangs on to that for any length of time is it's totally your guess is as good as mine at that point. They've tried everything back there so far. They might just stick with Ekblad because he's a bit more of a known commodity, but at the same time I also wonder, we've talked about them trying, like, seemingly very consciously limiting Matthew Tkachuk's minutes, and you have to wonder if they're not thrilled about the fact that now Aaron Ekblad is at 25 minutes a game, whereas on the season he's pacing for less than 23 and a half. So adding that extra power play duty is really upping his time on ice. Maybe they don't care about that too much, but there is some history within the organization with Paul Maurice there to suggest that that's not something they're trying to do with their elite players, their top players. So I still have concern that he comes off the top power play, but for now, yeah, you run him out there, you expect like maybe a 50-55 point pace. Ekblad's not an extremely yeah, he's not like a play driver out there, right? Like the power play is still going to run through Barkov. It's still going to run through Reinhart. Still going to run through Tkachuk. Ekblad is just there to facilitate. Probably not even going to shoot a whole lot from the back end, honestly, with those kind of guys on the power play. But he's definitely in a good spot to rack up some assists. All right, let's get back to these comments. There are a ton. I got to find where this starts again. Let's see here. Armin, my man, how'd you rank Taves, Pietrangelo, Matheson, Taves again, and Jones for rest of the season in Cats League with plus minus and hits, no blocks? Interesting spot there. Yeah, I was going to say Matheson with a bullet if it was any kind of points league, but with plus minus and hits, but no blocks, Matheson does take a pretty big dive there. That is really tough. Yeah, these guys are all pretty comparable. If Matheson was getting top power play still, then I'd have a lot more interest in that. I don't think anything's changed there. They haven't had a power play in this game yet so far, so or at least it's not showing up on frozen tools if it is. So yeah, either way, tough to be too excited there. Jason Tucker has another goal. All right, let's go. Hopefully I'm not against Tucker anywhere. I only know that I have him in a couple spots, but yeah, that's a good start for me in a couple spots. This is a tough question for sure. I think I will go with Seth Jones. That plus minus is going to hurt for sure, but he does bring hits, and he's probably going to be just as good or better in points scored as all those guys. So I think that would be it. Ads Falk, answer would remain the same. Bangers Cats with faceoff wins. Rank these three options: Kyle Connor, Barkov, Tuck plus Ghost. Bangers Cats with faceoff wins. I think you got to go Barkov there if you have the center only space. If you don't, then wow. If you don't, then I think I would go the Tuck route with the Bangers Cats to get Ghost if you need the defense. It's really about what you need, I guess. If you want one player, like you don't want to go trade out to the two players with Tuck and Ghost. If you want to be consolidating to one player there, then it's either Connor or Barkov, obviously. If you can take the center, I would take Barkov. If you can't, then I'd go for Connor. If you can't take the center in Barkov and it doesn't matter if it's the one player in Connor or the two players in Tuck plus Ghost, then I think I would go with Tuck plus Ghost. Michael, who has more upside rest of season, Faber or Spurgeon? Seems like these guys may be interchangeable on power play one. I don't think there's great upside with either, to be honest. Yeah, I'm not excited about either of these guys for sure. I guess I would just go with Spurgeon at the moment because he's on the top power play, but I'm not confident in that take at all. I just don't think that you can. I don't think you can conclusively say right now that both these guys are going to be a hold rest of season, or either of them can be. Slav worth a hold in a 12-team banger points. Nelson, Malkin, Hintz, Ryan O'Reilly, Moore on waivers. Any replaceable? Yeah, I think I would take Nelson, Hintz, and probably Malkin over Slav, assuming, of course, that you can get him in with the center spot there. Yeah, if you can fit him in with the center only spot, then I think I would go that route. I don't think I would drop Slav for Trevor Moore, though. So, yeah, hopefully that helps. If you're choosing between the three, Nelson, Malkin, Hintz, right at the moment, I think I'd take Nelson, but definitely all three in the same tier for me. Martin, Party at the Moon Tower. Big Val is major buy. Dude's going to cook. Agreed. Last one says, damn, so I suppose I'm dropping Colton. Yeah, you might be, unfortunately. Where would you rank Druin amongst the Avs forwards? Unlikely he gets power play, but they seem to like him with Mac. That's really where it depends on what they're going to do, right? If he comes right back into top line, even if it's just top line and not top power play, if he comes right back into top line with McKinnon, then he's higher than Colton immediately, but I don't know that he's in a tier with Lehkonen behind Nichushkin. I still think Nichushkin is a much better player. Reese's Pieces, what team metrics do you typically look at to see how well they're playing? So yeah, usually I'm on Natural Stat Trick. I can bring this over. Looking at 5v5 stats here. You can also check out the 5v5 score and venue adjusted. This kind of takes into account, sometimes if a team gets up big, they kind of go into a defensive shell, and so they end up allowing a lot more shots, but it's actually a good thing. It just means that they're up a lot in games. So this kind of adjusts for that a little bit, so you can definitely throw that in as well. I go by rates, and I usually put on this filter, and I go for the last 2 weeks. I like that sample size. This doesn't have the option in the team thing. It doesn't have the option to do like last 5 games or last 10 games. So I do it for the last 2 weeks. Obviously, you can see the games played will vary across the last 2 weeks for any number of teams, but then I do that, and then I'm mostly just looking for a quick look. If all I'm looking to do is a quick look, then I'll look at Corsi for percentage here. You can see like the Capitals, Devils, Panthers, Hurricanes, Utah showing up here in Corsi for percentage. That's what I'm looking at basically to see what I think is good there. And then I scroll over here, and I'm looking, too far. The scroll bar is at the bottom, and I zoomed in to make it bigger on the screen, but scoring chance for percentage is another thing I'll look at here. So that's a big one as well. And that gives me a little bit of an idea. You can see Ottawa shows up here now. Utah is still showing up high. Los Angeles starts to show up. So those are good things to look at just to see how they're playing. Are they doing well in terms of driving the play, in terms of the just the percentage, right? If you're looking for just offensive upside, then you can go just for the Corsi 4 or the scoring chance 4. If you're looking at, are they a good goalie environment, then you want to look at the scoring chances against, right? So you can dig into it a little bit more. I do like to look at, just the shooting percentage sometimes. You can see who's unsustainable, who's sustainable. You see the Sharks, Islanders, Kraken, Penguins, Lightning all shooting the lights out as of late. Wild have been getting terrific goaltending. Blues, Red Wings, Predators, Maple Leafs. No surprises really there. I guess the Predators is a little bit surprising that the 5v5 shooting or save percentage is that high, but yeah. Interesting stuff there for sure. You can also see that the shooting percentage for the Preds and the Flames. Look at the Flames, under 5% shooting percentage at 5v5 score and venue adjusted. So I do look at these kind of stuff just to see, with these save percentage, shooting percentage, PDO, just to see who's been getting lucky a little bit. You can see that as well, but you can also kind of see that in the metrics, right? Like if they're losing games, but they're crushing in Corsi 4 percentage and scoring chance 4 percentage, yeah, they're probably just getting a little bit unlucky. That's definitely, I think, the case for the Nashville Predators in the last little bit. Joshua, last week I traded John Marchie for J-Rob, hoping it works out. I'd do that. Yeah, I think I'd do that. At least you have some upside with Robertson, right? Like, even if things don't go perfectly, you think that they should go better for sure. How about Tippett? What's his outlook rest of season? Tippett has been a topic of conversation on here. He had a good week after last week. I was kind of saying he was a bit of a snoozer. 4 goals in the last 5 games now. This ice time is still super concerning. Just getting nothing to work with there. and I don't know that that's going to change anytime soon. He got 1646 in the last game, so obviously that's a little bit better. But yeah, how long does it last? It's always a question under John Tortorella. How long does any of this last? He was playing with Morgan Frost and Matvei Michkov. That's not a bad spot to be, but he wasn't on that Michkov top power play unit, which is not where you want to be. 97 shots per 67th in shot attempts, 40th in scoring chances for, 157, 192 in Corsi for, and scoring chance for per 60. Yeah, I think he's just like a 25 to 30 goal, 55 point scorer probably. And he's going to have stretches like this where he's scoring goals and looking good. And he's going to have other stretches where he's driving you absolutely bonkers. That is the Tortorella experience, in my opinion. Pretty much almost regardless, right? Just about any one of their forwards. You can have this kind of situation. Like even Michkov, with how well he's been playing, I still am not confident that Tortorella isn't going to pull the plug at some point. Armin asks, Preds players right off the rest of the season, what would be some good candidates to trade for them, like Stamkos, March? So, yeah, you can definitely look at Stamkos. I'm going to get to that. March or so, I haven't checked on his underlying stats in the last little bit, so maybe we can throw that up there. He wasn't on the top power play I saw in the last iteration. Yeah, it's not been great. It's okay, but not great. Yeah, pretty middling stuff overall in terms of the stats. I think I saw that he was not working on the top power play unit. Let me double check some of those. Gus Nyquist will be taking Ryan O'Reilly's spot on the Preds top power play unit. And, but Marchessault is on the top power play unit. Okay, so Marchessault on the top power play unit is okay, but he's playing with Leroux and Svechkov, which is not where you want to be as they go with a Forsberg, Stamkos, Nyquist top line. Yeah, I'm not trying to acquire Marchessault at the moment. Stamkos is a little bit different story. I'll save him for when we get to him in the list here. Joshua asks, what is his rest of season for J-Rob outlook projection? So yeah, I kind of covered that, 70 75 points. DJ, thoughts on Lehkonen now that he's power play one, or do you think he loses it? I think there's a pretty good chance he loses it at some point. Yeah, if you have him and you can trade him for something, I don't even know how well he's been doing. I don't have him anywhere. It's 2 T's, I believe, in Arturi Lehkonen. There we go. Yeah, underlying numbers are not great, but he's been scoring some goals. Yeah, doing pretty good. Lots of minutes, which you love to see. Definitely a player that Bednar trusts. I think I would move Lehkonen now if I could for somebody that's a little bit more exciting. Maybe you could move Lehkonen even for like a Stamkos or something. I might be into something like that. Feels a little bit more assured in terms of the power play rest of season. Party at the Moon Tower didn't like the McCann versus J-Rob comparison. Hey Nate, asked Jordan, do you think Laine being back negatively impacts Caufield's production, especially on the power play? I think it's probably a net neutral. Yeah, like on this Laine goal that was scored here, like Caufield had an assist on that power play goal. I think, they changed it to Hudson. Originally it showed up as Caufield here. Yeah, I think both can coexist, but it is a question. I guess I can see the case where it's possible that it's a negative. I don't know if I'm like actively factoring that into any kind of equation on Caufield's value rest of season. Joshua says, speaking for Laine, what's a realistic projection for rest of season? I can check what I had on him to start the season. I don't know that I'd be moving off it just yet. I had him for 26 goal, 59 point pace with 17 and a half minutes average time on ice. I don't know what he's gotten here in these last couple games. That'd be worth checking out. 17 and a half, 17, 17. So yeah, he's living in that range. Yeah, I don't think I'd be moving off that just yet. 26 goal, 59 point. He is on the top power play, but he's also on a Doc Slavkovsky even strength line. At least he was. I guess I could double check that one as well. Make sure. Yeah, still the same line there. Yeah, I don't think I'm moving off that projection just yet. I would need to see more chance generation, something a little bit more under the hood to suggest to me that Laine is producing at a level I didn't expect in terms of the underlying stats. Just grabbed Blackwood today, looking to trade for a D. Got offered Laine Jones for Brant Clark to Cord, Bangers League, Cats, blocks, pims, hits. If you can, yeah, I mean, I guess it depends if you have a goalie to spare. If you have a goalie to spare and you can give up to Cord because you grabbed Blackwood today, then I don't mind that at all. Yeah, I don't mind that at all. Blake says, "Hey Nate, quick midstream crossing of the streams. Miss you." All right, I don't think. I think that one is definitely behind the Patreon paywall. Ironman, sorry, who would be the drop between Taves, Pietrangelo, Falk? Who would be the drop there? I'm assuming this is the same as that other group you were talking about. I think it's Falk at the moment. Pietrangelo too. They're all kind of gross. Yeah, maybe you can hang on to Falk and hope that he turns things around and stays on top power play. I guess he probably has the most upside there. I think it's Pietrangelo, actually. Oh, also Shabbat. I would go Shabbat first. Joshua, by the way, longtime listener, first-time commenter, followed your 0G strategy, drafted the Cord, Wall, and Gus on waivers, riding an 8-0 record to start the year, so thank you. Nice. Very nice. Do you ever filter your podcast partner's jokes? I cringe in laughter during crossing streams. It's impossible to filter Blake. You could try, but you would never succeed. Do you think Dylan Holloway's real deal in a league without hits? I think he could be. I think he needs more deployment. We talked about Holloway in the flagship show, so you can go back and check out that. But I do think he needs more deployment to sustain it. He needs power play 1, or he needs to be playing with some of the big guns there in St. Louis. But the underlying stats look really good in this last little stretch. Sometimes players have these little stretches and they go away again. Consistency is oftentimes a problem for young players like Holloway, so I'm not ready to anoint him yet, but I'm definitely excited. Like, not every player has, even a hot stretch like this where they put together some big scoring chance numbers, some big shot numbers, and the puck's going in. So she asks, would you consider McAvoy a buy low? Man, it is tough to do anything with the Bruins right now and tough to feel confident about any take around that team. Underlying stats are good. 24 minutes. It really depends if he comes off the power play, and that is a real possibility because they did it for Hampus Lindholm before. It depends how low you can buy him. I'd be looking to buy him pretty low before I'd be making that move because it is scary, right? I don't want to give up something of significant value for McAvoy, and probably whoever's got him is not going to give him up unless they really feel like they're getting a rest of season hold player. Yeah, I mean, if you can move him for, I'm trying to think, like, would I move him for Vince? Would I move Vince Dunn for Charlie McAvoy? I'm just thinking of a guy who's come back and who's hot at the moment. Probably that's a good move to make, but it doesn't feel good, right? Yeah, definitely somebody in that range is who you'd be looking at. Christopher asks, Spurgeon versus Zellweger rest of season. Definitely taking Zellweger there. Sharon Govich, still a must-hold in all leagues. Guys doing cardio sessions lately, except an empty net goal. Thoughts going forward? We could throw Sharon Govich in here. Igor Sharon. Is it an O? Why can't I think of this right now? Sharon Govich? Sharon Govich, right? There we go. 18 minutes. Yeah, underlying stats have tailed off. He had he had a really good start here. And then it's tailed off pretty significantly here in the last little bit. I don't think he's a must-hold, but I do think that it's a guy who's going to end up with probably like a 25-30 goal, 55-60 point pace rest of season. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. It depends who you can get, right? Like, if you can drop him for a really good streamer, I would think about it for sure. Sabres 5 goals, Peterka 0 points. That does hurt. I'm not going to lie. That does hurt me. Ricky says, hi, Nate. With Cacuffle scoring, would you take Hudson or Middleton as a fifth defenseman? Does power play 1 for Hudson make it a slam dunk? Middleton at least puts up good I think that was peripherals. Yeah, peripherals. Hudson or Middleton as a fifth defenseman? I think you got to go for Hudson. Yeah, I think you got to go for Hudson with the power play. As soon as the power play goes away, Hudson becomes unrosterable in my opinion. But yeah, I think you got to go there. Farty at the Moon Tower says this man is a machine responding to 7,000 comments at once. Not at once, but I'm doing it sequentially and rather quickly. Who'd you rather rest of season, Genther or Velarde? That's got to be Genther for me. I just think the upside's so much higher there. Justin Reed says Troy Terry X2. Did he get another goal? Got to check it. Another Troy Terry goal. Let's go. Gotta love it. All right. Reached the end of the comments again. I will get back to them if there's more. I'm sure there will be, but we got to get back into the list. Gabriel Velarde, 2 goals, 3 points. His last 5, almost 20 minutes a night. Underlying stats continue to look pretty bad for Velarde. 281 shots per 60, 171 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, closer to 100 in the on-ice numbers. That's okay. 31 goal, 57-point pace on the season, 49% IPP, but 14% on-ice shooting percentage and a 20% shooting percentage. Really weird spot for Gabe Velarde so far. It feels like he should be shooting more and doing more, but also like the IPP being so low is, I mean, he's never been a high IPP guy, but it is still low. So like he should regress and in both directions, it feels like at this point. And I feel like this is pretty close to where I had Gabe Velarde projected at the beginning of the season. I think I had him for 36 goals. Here it is. Gabe Velarde, 36 goals, 58 points. He's on pace for 31 and 57, right? So this is kind of who Velarde is. He's getting to it in a weird way that's making me a little bit uncomfortable. But I mean, I did have him projected for a 17.3% shooting percentage. He's getting more minutes than I had him projected for. I admit that it's not a fun experience hanging on to Gabe Velarde, but I think you're probably going to regret it if you drop him in one of his cold spells. That's been my stance so far. Basically, as long as he is line 1, power play 1, I think I'm hanging on. Yuri Slakowski, again, Blake and I talked about him on the flagship show that came out today, Monday. Just 1 assist his last 5, 16 minutes, playing on the second line, but still top power play, unless that's changed in this game here. I don't believe so. I'm not seeing it on the lines. Yeah, still there. The scoring chances have come up a little bit here, but overall it's not a good look for Slafkovsky. I do think you can drop Slafkovsky if you need to. I don't think you have to hang on to him by any stretch, but if you can swing it to hang on to him, I just think that he's probably going to have a second half breakout again like he had last year. Maybe he's just a slow starter. Who knows? There's any number of reasons. But yeah, I think you can drop him at this moment. But I would be prepared to jump back on him if things start to go his way, because I do think there's a pretty good upside with this player. Kevin Fiala, 2 goals, 4 points his last 5, almost 18 and a half minutes average time on ice, 59 shots per 60, 83rd individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 48th Corsi, 4 per 60, 128 on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Still on pace for only 28 goals, 54 points, just over 17 minutes, about 17 minutes, 15 seconds average time on ice. The on-ice shooting percentage at 8.7% is really what's killing Fiala's numbers to date, but it's also a spot where it feels like he has not been a favorite of the new coach there. He's playing with Laferriere and Deneau. That is not a good place for offense to go. Obviously, going to be on the top power play, but can't get all of his offense there either. I'm adjusting my expectation downward for Fiala at this point, but I do think this is a really talented player who's likely going to have a stretch at some point in the season where he goes off again for like 10 points in 5 games, and everybody's like, oh yeah, Fiala's good again. Yeah, he was always good. It's just, it's tough for him to be consistent in this environment, playing with Deneau and Laferriere. Jake Wallman's maintaining his hot streak, 2 goals, 5 points in his last 5, 23 minutes average time on ice. Shots have dropped off, curiously. 112th in shots per 60, but still 14th in shot attempts per 60. 33rd in Corsi 4 per 60 and 47th in on-ice scoring chances 4 per 60. Those are solid numbers from him. On pace for 13 goals and 66 points on the season. The IPP is ridiculous. The on-ice shooting percentage is probably a touch high. Everything else is probably okay. Yeah, I think Wallman, I still think he needs power play to really be effective long term. But yeah, I think you can get by with Jake Wallman. I'm trying to come around on Jake Wallman as a guy you can hold even if he doesn't have top power play. I don't know if I'm fully there yet, but he's warming me up. I'll put it that way. And the rest of the Sharks team is warming me up as well. Kent Johnson, 3 goals, no assists in his last 5 here. almost 18 minutes average time on ice, 29th shots per 60, and 140 in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 104 on ice Corsi, 4 per 60, 151 in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Kent Johnson obviously had a big game there on Sunday. Triple eligible now on Yahoo, so that's a nice look. Has been shooting the puck a lot more as of late, and that's interesting for sure. I'm still not convinced that this is like the new Kent Johnson that we should expect moving forward. He's got a high shooting percentage, high IPP, high on ice shooting percentage. Everything's redlining a bit here. That being said, like, he got some good deployment there in the last game. That's got to be exciting if you're rostering Kent Johnson at the moment. He was playing with Sean Monahan. He was playing on the top power play. So those are good looks for Kent Johnson for sure. I don't know that I could say that he's a rest of season hold, but he's definitely somebody who you should be rostering at the moment in most 12-team leagues. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, he's got 5 points in his last 5, including 2 goals, 20 minutes a night, 129th shots per 60, 109 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 160 on ice Corsi, 4 per 60, 130 in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. In the last game, Nuge was up there with McDavid and Hyman, obviously on the top power play, as he always is. It's a 12-goal, 43-point pace for Nugent-Hopkins on the season. Definitely the 42% IPP doesn't make a lot of sense there. That's going to come up in a big way. He's going to get a lot more points there. But yeah, it's probably a 70-point player. 70-point pace rest of the season I still think is reasonable. He's getting some of that regression back here. Obviously, whenever he's with McDavid, he's going to get a boost that way. So yeah, it is what it is at this point. I'm not like excited about Nugent-Hopkins, never have been, but there could be a buy low here. He could be dropped in some shallower leagues, and he could be of interest there. Stamkos, no goals, 2 assists in his last 5, 18 minutes, average time on ice, playing center now, which is kind of scary because he hasn't done that a whole lot in the last few years. 235th shots per 60, 230 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. That's not what Stamkos is known for. The on ice numbers still look really good, though. 25th, Corsi, 4 per 60, 38th, and on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Playing with Forsberg at even strength will do that for you. Definitely there's positive regression coming for Stamkos. 7.4% on ice shooting percentage is ridiculous. 59% IPP, also fairly ridiculous for a guy of this caliber. Yeah, I think Stamkos is still a buy low. It's not a great look right now that he's having to play center, that the shots aren't coming. But I think that's why you can get him low right now, and I would be looking to do that in a lot of spots. All right, we need to get back to the comments because they're piling up again. How are Terry's underlying stats? Are they legit? I do believe Troy Terry's underlying stats are legit. That's why I chose him. He had 5 assists in his last 5, 20 minutes a night, 29th in shots per 60, so he had to have some of them go in. On-ice numbers pretty good as well. Troy Terry's legit, folks. I've been saying it for a minute. El Pexin, Haydate, Vetrano, Trocheck. We can throw both of those in for a minute here. Frank Vetrano, Vincent Trocheck. Both guys that I like, both guys that get big minutes. Trocheck's got 7 points in his last 5 here. Vetrano's got 4 in his last 5. This will be without the games ongoing right now. 22nd in shots per 60 for Vetrano. On-ice numbers looking pretty good for Trocheck. Trocheck probably needs Panarin to really pop off in the way that we kind of expected him to fulfill that kind of high-end potential that a lot of people had him projected for, including myself. He's getting that right now, and it's been going in for him as of late. Vetrano shooting the puck like crazy, getting lots of minutes as of late. Seems like Cronin is finally playing the big boys, playing Vetrano, playing Terry, letting them do their thing. And I still think there's some positive regression to come for Frank Vetrano. So I do think he can be a 25 to 30 goal scorer with about 50, 55 points rest of season. And obviously he hits as well. So he does that. All right, what else we got in the comments? Would you move off Gustafsson for a player, then scoop Jerry from free agency? Other goalies, Erson. I assume that you're meaning not Eric Gustafsson, but Filip Gustafsson, the goaltender. I think that I made this mistake last year, actually. I had Joey Decord last year, and I had, who's the other one that I had in a bunch of spots? Connor Ingram in a bunch of spots. A lot of Joey Decord, a lot of Connor Ingram last year, and I held them too long, and they lost all their value when I probably could have traded them for a really good skater. It's always a good idea in my book to trade a goalie who's performing really well for a skater. yeah, somebody who you know is going to be in your lineup for the rest of the season, that's almost always going to be a good move in my books. Yes, it was Gustafsson. Good stuff. What caliber of player would you feel comfortable trading away for Forsberg? Would you trade players like Kempe, PD, or Nichushkin for him? I would trade all three of those players for Filip Forsberg. Pettersson is the one I'd feel the least comfortable about, but I would trade all three. Last one's thoughts on Vlasic. Feel like I might drop Matheson for him with Hudson on the top power play. League is a 3D man league. Um, it's tough. Matheson's still skating an incredible amount of ice time because he's the only, he's kind of the only defenseman there who is worth playing at every strength. Man, it's a tough one because Matheson gets on the back on the top power play, then he's immediately like heads and tails above Vlasic. Without the top power play, he's probably around Vlasic. I think I would hang on to Matheson there. Like Seth Jones is going to be back at some point here. Vlasic is hot right now, but I'm not sure how long that lasts either. So yeah, that's my thoughts there. Thanks, Nate. No problem. Thoughts on Granlund's production going forward? As long as he's getting these minutes, he's going to put up some points. That's basically how I feel about it. Definitely he's running hot. And that part, like 88-point pace, is that going to continue? Probably not. But 75-point pace, possible with these kind of minutes. I don't think it's impossible. Will note that his minutes have come down a little bit as of late. I'm not sure if there's like a specific one game, maybe missed some shifts or something. No, looks like the minutes have just been down a little bit. I guess the 15-22 in the first game back did kind of keep him down there. But he went right back to putting pucks in the net. So, and the last game was 23 minutes. So, yeah, I think that you can probably continue on with Mikael Granlund. I don't think he's an 88-point player, but is he a 75-point player? Maybe. And so I think you're hanging on as long as that works. I will say the last lineup where he was with Klimkos and Ethan Cardwell, not here for that. That's rough. We need him back with Toffoli, Eklund, Zetterlund, somebody, please. G-Horn, hey Nate, I play in a Cats League with Pims and Hits. Would you trade Dobson for Sider? Need hits and blocks. Would you trade Hyman for Pasta? Not sure about the Bruins. Thank you. All right. Dobson for Sider. Need hits and blocks. Man, that's tough. Dobson definitely has way more offensive potential, but definitely Sider, we know what he can do with the hits and blocks. I mean, I guess they're roughly equivalent in what they bring to the table in a Bangers Cats. I don't feel good about it, but I think you can do it. Yeah, I think you can do it. I just feel like Dobson is going to have a stretch this year where he gets back to doing the things that we expected, and we're all going to feel kind of foolish for letting him go or moving off him. I do think Dobson's probably still buy low in his own right, but yeah, I think they're roughly equivalent in your format. Hyman for Pasta is another conversation. I have Pasta up here to talk about. Yeah, it was announced that Pasternak is dealing with an upper body injury. They still think that he might be able to play. Maybe, at least. He's still playing 21 minutes a night. He's got 5 points, but mostly assists in the last little bit. Might just be a case where Pasternak is a bit more of a playmaker now. The shots really haven't suffered at any point throughout the season. It's really been the other players, not Pasternak, that have been a problem. I can say that with some confidence here. So, yeah, I think that I would still go with Pasternak. Yeah, I would still go with Pasternak over Hyman, but it is much more of a conversation. You do worry about an upper body injury. Will it be something that lingers? Is it something like what Matthews dealt with, where we had that one season where instead of a 60-plus goal pace, it was a 40-goal pace, and it wasn't at all what you signed up for? But I think similar to Matthews, Pasternak's worst-case scenario is like a 35, 40-goal pace, even if he is kind of hampered throughout the season. And so far, he's still shooting the puck. So I think I would still go Pasternak in that case. Jordan says, who would you bench tomorrow between Nichushkin versus Pittsburgh, Rust versus Colorado, McCann versus Florida? Tough spot there. Probably. That is tougher. With the split power play units in Pittsburgh all of a sudden, that's throwing me for a loop here. Maybe I would bench Rust there. It's close between Rust and McCann. I don't think you can bench Nichushkin right now. Just joined Orlov or Hughes for D-man. I mean, if you need the off nights, then for this week, you should go with Orlov. But I think Hughes has more upside for sure. Luke Hughes does. Doc from Urage and Laine. We get an even strength goal from the Canadians. Good stuff. CG Blackwood better 0G option than Thompson or Kemper. I would say so. Yes, at this point. Like I said, there's every chance it goes sideways, as a million of these goalie scenarios do every single year. But at the moment, I would rather have the guy playing for Colorado that they just gave up a second round pick for. Carter says, last question. Picked up Neighbors. Feels like I should hold him. Am also rostering Bush and Falk, and it feels gross. I don't think you have to hold Neighbors. Yeah, there's probably, if you picked up Neighbors, then there's probably other players out there that are somewhat similar that you'll be able to pick up. I don't think Neighbors is much more than a streamer in most leagues. CG asks, who would you target if trying to trade Meyer? It's tough to trade Meyer right now. Definitely hasn't been his strongest run of play. He does have 5 points in the last 5. The underlying metrics are terrific. I just don't think this is a time to trade Meyer personally. I guess if people are saying he's back just because of the points scored and they're not really digging into it in the power play units and all that, maybe it is time to get off of Meyer. But overall, I don't know that you're going to get worth what Meyer should be worth, I guess, is what I should say there. Yeah, I struggle to find a deal that I'm actually going to be super into. I guess it would have to be somebody who's kind of been underperforming so far, who I have a lot of confidence in coming back up. Like, I guess Forsberg, yeah. You could trade Meyer for Forsberg and get Forsberg back, and I'd like that. If you can get that one done, I do that. That's about what I can say, I guess. Yeah, maybe I'll try that one. I have Meyer in one spot. I can see if I can get Forsberg for Meyer. B-Zone, Blackwood or Wedgwood? Who do you see as Colorado starting goalie? Definitely Blackwood there for me. Last one, Stankoven was dropped in my league for this week's schedule. Should I prioritize grabbing him? Not if he's not going to play for you this week. There are very, very few players that I would prioritize picking up in a week that they're not going to play for you at all. And Stankoven is not one of them. All right, back to the list. We talked about Pasternak, so we'll get to Justin Falk here. Just 3 games to show in the last 5 here that he's gotten into. 2 assists there. Just over 24.5 minutes average time on ice, 168 shots per 60, but 42nd scoring chances for. Really, to me, Falk is dependent on power play 1. If he has power play 1, I'm going to keep holding on to him because he does shoot, he does hit, he does block, he does all of that reasonably well. And if he's on power play 1, which should be getting better, I'm curious to see still what this Montgomery-led team does rest of the season. I think they can be pretty good, so I want to be in on whoever's on that top power play unit for St. Louis at the moment. Konechny, he's got 2 goals, 5 points his last 5, skating 21 minutes a night. Underlying metrics are not great, but yeah, it's Travis Konechny skating 21 minutes a night. John Tortorella absolutely loves this guy with good reason. I think the 94-point pace is probably pretty high. 89% IPP is probably not going to sustain, but I think Travis Konechny can be a 35 to 40 goal scorer with about a point per game under these conditions. Filip Forsberg. Blake and I talked about Forsberg in the flagship show. I consider Filip Forsberg the biggest buy low in the NHL right now in fantasy hockey in pretty much every format. So, yeah, I'd be going out to get him. The underlying metrics look terrific on the season. In the last little bit, everything looks good. It just the puck has not been going in the net. I think that changes. I think Forsberg gets back to scoring in a big way and makes everybody who moved on from him for less than worth feel pretty stupid. So, yeah, point per game plus 40, 45 goals. I think that's all still well within the wheelhouse for Forsberg with upside for more as the rest of the season pace. Brandt Clark, 2 assists in his last 5 games here. The ice time has come way down, which is of a lot of concern. The shots are still there for Brandt Clark, but yeah, pretty concerning that the ice time is so far down. I do think you can drop Brandt Clark if you need to. Yeah. We had a comment in the Discord is... what was the exact comment? I should quote it. It was good. It was a good line. Let me find it back. But basically, my thoughts on Brandt Clark are he's got to have this power play exposure. Last game they went with Jordan Spence all of a sudden. I don't know. Brandt Clark must have pissed off the coach there with something, and now it's a situation. we can say. I gotta find this back. Where did it go? Is there a shadow of Doughty? That was the line. Great line, Valenzuela. Great line. Yeah, Brant Clark. You can't roster any defenseman with these few minutes. Is basically my position on Brant Clark. I think the talent is terrific. We've seen it. We've seen him produce. For whatever reason, the coach isn't seeing it right now. Doesn't want him there. Doesn't want him on the top power play. Doesn't want him getting 20 minutes a night. So we have to react. And I am not of the opinion that Brant Clark will make or break your season. I think he can be really, really good. But he has to get that exposure. Otherwise, I don't think it's worth basically wasting a roster spot hoping that he's going to score a ton of points while playing less than 16 minutes a night on the back end. All right. We can get back to the last comment here, and then we will sign off. Chichi Mini, who would you trade Meyer and Strome? Who'd you trade Meyer and Strome for Forsberg? I think would you, right? Yeah, would you trade Meyer and Strome for Forsberg? Meyer and Strome for Forsberg. I think I would. If Meyer gets top power play, then yeah, you could potentially regret that. But for what you picked up Dylan Strome on waivers, right? Most likely this season. Yeah, I think I would do it, to be honest. Yeah, somebody quote me, somebody write it down, somebody at me at the end of the season when all is said and done. Maybe it's a wrong take, but I think I would do that deal. All right. I think that we've made it to the end. Oh, we got one more comment. Hey, Nate from Jordan. I'm assuming you'd be fine with trading away Caufield for Forsberg. Is adding Nichushkin to that deal too much? I would trade Caufield for Forsberg. Nichushkin is probably a little too much for me. That is a bit rich. Yeah, maybe if you can get something back. I like getting the best player in the deal, who I think is Forsberg. But yeah, I think that is maybe a little rich. You're giving up two very solid producers rest of the season, in my opinion there. All right. That is going to be all that I've got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band there for supplying music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.